Hello everyone. In this example, I'm going to be going over problem 2-11. I've received a few questions about it, so I'm going to go over to 11. I'm also going to show you how to use a template correctly and how to create a good PDF when you're all done. Those are also questions I received recently. So let's go through this. So when you start up, you're going to see something like this. You may be opening drawings, right? You can do that up here. But when you go to create a new drawing, you really should be using the new command. And if you hit the new command, right? I'm not so sure you can see this. Maybe you can now. It'll say select a template, right? And the template is something you're going to be creating. You've probably already started it with some inch and metric templates. That's good. We're going to keep building on it. So first thing you got to decide, is it inch or is it metric? And if you take a look at the drawing, you'll see that most of the numbers, all the numbers are whole numbers, right? They're dimensions like 70, 60, etc. If it's in whole numbers and rather large whole numbers, you know it's going to be metric, right? Because, for example, the size of the ellipse is 70. If it was inches, this would be a part that was almost 6 feet across. So we know that's probably not right for this type of part. So this is metric. And like I said, whole numbers, it's going to be metric. When you're dealing with inches, it's going to go to 2 decimal places. Now, in terms of where you put the template, that's sort of up to you. I keep most of my stuff on my OneDrive and in CAD. So there's my CAD 101 metric template. By the way, you're going to have access to these templates as well, but we'll start to work our way through them. You're also going to be developing your own. Okay, so we come into this drawing and everything's set up kind of nicely. Keep in mind, when you use a template, eventually what a template will have is, for example, it have all your layers all set up for you, right? So where you're going to put all the different objects, that's something we're going to learn about. They also have different layouts. So for example, this is a nice border and title block for what's known as an A4 size drawing, right? That's about 8.5 by 11. And then an A3 size drawing here as well, right? So don't worry about those. We haven't gotten to those yet, but those will be available relatively soon. So back in model space, most of us are working in here. And if you see as we get in here, first thing you got to do is sort of decide how and where you're going to draw stuff, right? So in terms of these drawings, usually I sort of start in the lower left-hand corner. I make that my 0, 0 point. That doesn't really work in this drawing because there's no bottom corner. So in this case here, I'm going to use 0, 0 as the center of that hexagon, right? So let's get that nicely centered here, right? So come on. There we go. And in terms of the drawing, let's start by putting in a few of the circles. I'm going to start here, right? You'll notice it's kind of not clicking very well. So let's check a few things. If I go into snap settings, you'll see they're set to every 2 units. 2 units is a little low. I'm going to change that to 5 units. And you'll notice my grid spacing over here is 10. So every one of these grid lines represents 10 units. So there we go. I say, okay, boom. And here we are. We got ourselves to draw. So again, back to the circle. I started at 0, 0, right? You'll see here it shows right on the screen 0, 0, but you don't see any coordinates, right? That's another question that's come up. If you want to find your coordinates, go down here and go to customization, right? That's on your status line. Click on that and go all the way up to the top and click on coordinates, and you'll notice now the X, Y, and Z coordinates appear, right? So that can be kind of helpful. So we get in here, we start the circle, we start to draw it out. Notice down here that the circle says specify the radius of the circle. In our book, it shows a diameter of 30, so that would be a radius of 15. The other thing you can do is you can change it to diameter just by typing a D if you prefer to do it that way. Now I just noticed that this object is actually not on my object layer, so I'm going to move it over there, and I'm going to make the object layer my current layer. So this is all stuff that you don't necessarily have to do. Don't worry about it, but that's going to be our current layer. So set that as our current. All right. There you go. So there's the circle. The other thing you have to put in is the hexagon. This is a good opportunity to use the polygon command. If you don't see it, it's up there with rectangle. Again, it says the polygon, enter the number of sides. Ours is a hexagon, so it has 6 sides. And we're going to specify, start to draw it. The next question is it inscribed or circumscribed? Circumscribed means that it is fit around the outside of it. Inscribed means the circle that you use to find it is completely inside of it, right? So inscribed, the hexagon is going to be inside, circumscribed is going to be around the outside. Right, so in this case here, because we're going to the points, we're going to actually use inscribed, right? And I'm going to grab this and start to pull it out. And because I have those settings up there, this would be 5 units, this is 10 units, and boom, it shows up a hexagon, which is 20 units across from point to point. There is one other circle here we might want to use, but let's not worry about that right away. And let's move on to putting in our ellipse. Right, so if you go here, you have the center and the end. In my case here, I'm going to use this axis and end. If I start, I have a point that is over here, 5 more units. Right, and I click on that, and as I drag it out in this direction, you notice you see the number getting bigger, 60, 75, etc. I know that this ellipse is 70 across, so I'm going to just type in 70. Then the question is, okay, how high is this ellipse? If you take ellipse, look at the ellipse has a dimension of 50, right? So I'm going to do half of that because we're essentially only doing half of the ellipse distance, and there you go. You got your ellipse. Got a circle on the other end. The circle is shown where its center is 60 units across. Now I'm going to draw what I call a construction line. It's not a line that's going to be on the final part, but it helps me to show exactly where this object is. Now you can do the same thing by doing the calculations using math, but AutoCAD's a graphics tool, so drawing with it is oftentimes helpful. Right, so I'm going to draw this line out, and as I said, the circle's center was 60 units across, so I'm going to make this 60 units and hit enter. Now I know that's exactly where my circle center is. And I put there, again, remember this is doing the radius. The circle actually is given a diameter of 10, so I'm just going to type in 5 for the radius, and there's my circle. Now, most students get to this point relatively well, and then they're a little bit confused. So in this thing, there is a web, right? And the web is 5 units in, 5 units from here, 5 units from there, right? So we can start constructing the web by, for example, here we know there's a circle. We know that the web has a radius of 10. Right, so that's what that kind of outline of this. This is known as a cast part. Right, so in terms of this, that's going to be a unit 10. We can do the same thing over here where I do another circle centered out here, and we know it's going to go out again. So it has a diameter. Right, the previous circle had a diameter of 15. This is a diameter of 20. So there we got. So we got the web kind of constructed, or at least we're starting it. And then the next choice is this circle where we drag it out. And if you see, it has a dimension of 45, a radius of 45. It shows that twice. So I'm going to put that radius in, boom, and there's our circle, right? Now, exactly how to do the next step can be kind of challenging. I'm going to use what is known as the fillet command, right? You know, there's 4 fillets here, right? And in terms of the fillets, first off, it says fillet select object, but keep in mind what the fillet is showing now is a radius of 0, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is change the radius by hitting R, changing it to 2, and then I can go in and I can do a fillet here and here. I can do a fillet here, and I got to hit return because it looks like it dumps me out. Or you can change it to multiple fillets. Right, I'll do that multiple. Right, and I'll go there and there. And the way I'm going to do is actually going to create half of this and then just copy it. right? So now I'm going to bust out the trim command and clean up all these edges, right? So I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, right? I don't need that, I don't need that, right? I don't need any of this. I can get rid of all of that. And now we have that nice object there. And I'll clean up the rest in a little bit. But I'm going to use the mirror command. I'm going to mirror this object, and this object. And I'm going to have it go right down the middle in terms of the actual mirror. And then it says, do you want to delete erase the objects? Yes, no. Erase the objects? Yes, no. No, I don't want to erase the objects. Lastly, I'll trim off that, and then you might want to zoom in to get rid of some of this other little bits and pieces here. Right, there's another batch over here. Probably the easiest way to do that is to just draw a box around it, right? Because you don't want the little pieces, and just erase them. I'm going to do a zoom all, or I'm going to do a zoom extents, and that gets us right back to it. So we have the main piece there, right? We use the dimensions we have, and the only thing we're missing really is the tail. So let's do the tail over here. If you take a look, there's the dimension where the tail goes out 40 units. So I'm going to start, draw that out 40. This is another one of those construction lines. I want to go straight up, right? A good way to do that is this ortho mode. If you do ortho, it'll only allow you to go horizontal or vertical. If I take a look, it gives me the dimension of 15, and then the tail itself is given is 10 wide. So again, I'm dragging it in the direction I want and putting in the dimension, and then I can go down, in this case here, another 10, and go straight over, right? It really doesn't matter because I'm going to trim it off. Whoop. Make sure you don't object snap it. See this object snap? That's overriding it. You can always turn your object snap off and then just drag it. All right. There are a couple little things you got to do to clean this up. We could do it before or after we mirror it. If we do it now, it's a little more efficient. So again, I'm going to go back to the fillet command. In this case here, it still is a radius of 2. So I'm going to go this one and this one. That creates that nice radius. And then I'm going to use the chamfer command. Chamfer is where it's squared off. Again, by default, when you start with fillet or chamfer, the distance is going to be 0. So the first thing you got to do is set the distance, right? And then you can go in and grab the object, boom, and boom, boom, and boom, and there it is, right? Let's mirror this. I want to mirror this piece. I want to mirror this piece. I want to mirror this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, boom, and I want to mirror it right here. And I don't want to release the source object. Back in with the trim command. Could have done this before, but I got to trim out this, this, and this. And lastly, you can go through and select these 2 construction lines and get rid of them. If you were doing a drawing where you're using multiple layers, you could put these on what is known as the construction layer, right? And if you put them on the construction layer, you can then put them on the construction layer. Notice they change color. And then you can go through and turn the construction layer off, right? And they disappear. Now, the good news with that is if you want to use that construction again, it's sitting there waiting for you in the background, right? So here's your object. It's done, right? Later on, we'll do simple techniques like going in here and going to our setup here, right? And then we can grab the object and do a nice job with it and stuff like that. But we've got to learn a little bit more about templates before we get into this and the whole board in Teleblock 1. For now, we're just going to print it out in model space. So go up to the print. Go up to print. Come on. You'll notice you'll probably not have a printer defined. So go in. I recommend you do the DWG to PDF option. Boom. right? And if you do a preview, this is what it's gonna look like. So if you don't do anything, the object is gonna